today we're really excited to talk about kind of scaling membership growth and through the power, I guess, of always on PPC. So yeah, a kind of really interesting topic to talk about kind of how PPC can be a real kind of injection for that membership growth strategy that you might be looking towards. Really brief intro for those that, just to make sure that you're aware who we are. So Copperway Digital, membership growth agency. It is on today's call is myself and John. John is one of our kind of lead PPC account managers and is kind of really experienced in running kind of high-level campaigns for membership organizations to drive that membership growth. So John's going to give a lot of real good insight into how you can use always on PPC to get that membership growth. So as I say, Copperway Digital, we've been supporting organizations with member and customer growth since 2008. We've got a lot of history behind us about how we can use digital to grow the awareness of your organizations. And I always say, and our mission as an organization is to help 10 million members realize the benefit of their membership by 2034. And we can only do that by working with organizations like yourselves to help make sure your members are getting value from your membership, and ultimately, and in this particular case, is make sure they join in the first place so they can get that value. So we're really dedicated to driving that kind of membership value for your members. We're part of the kind of trade association for MemCom and MemberWise, and we've been suppliers in there for a while now. So we're really kind of supporting the industry for quite a few years. Just a quick kind of admin piece, top right-hand corner, you'll see there's some questions where you can ask some questions. So feel free to, as you're going, as kind of even myself or John's going through this, make sure you ask some questions. They'll appear in the chat in the top right-hand corner. They will do in the question section. And you can also, should be able to upvote for people's questions as well. And yeah, and there's a section at the end where we'll go through those questions. So please feel free to ask those questions as you go. So just to kick start, I guess, who is this for? So I want to make it really clear, kind of for those people that are running ads at the moment and just looking for improvement across those ads. So it's very easy. There's lots of different levels of kind of ad management there is, and this is definitely kind of in the sense of really how to make sure you're getting the value from the ads. So if you're running ads at the moment and you're looking to improve, I think that you'll get some value from this. If you're actually quite just active on social media, because you see social media as a way to interact with your current and potentially future members, then again, this I think will kind of help you understand how you can use paid to enhance that even further. If you're just looking to open up new acquisition channels, so you may already have routes of how you're acquiring new members, but obviously paid ads is definitely a really powerful and successful channel that you could use to drive new members. And generally, if you're just trying to understand your membership acquisition funnel, there's a lot of data around the channels that we manage, and it really can help you understand kind of what value you're getting, your members are getting, and just the funnel, the process they go through to become a member. So a lot of data comes in through paid ads. So this can be really useful here as well. So if you fit into any of those categories, I really feel like this will be useful. This presentation will be useful for you. So, without further ado, just to pass you over to John. As I say, John is one of our kind of senior paid ads managers, and he will be taking you through how to kind of run always on campaigns. So I'll hand over to you now, John.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So I think it's quite a specific question we're looking to answer today, and there's some maybe technical elements that I'll talk about today, which might be overindulging or too complex. So if there's something specific to mention in the chat that I need to explain more, then by all means interrupt me, Chris, and you go through them. But I think if we start off with maybe some definitions in terms of what we're talking about by always on, and then relating that back to what membership organizations may be doing in some cases without always on. And what we're referring to is that year-round exposure to campaigns that run all day, every day. And by all means, companies may, or membership organizations may run campaign bursts or promotions or areas of focus, but there's an argument to always having this background, always on campaigns, whereby you're looking at the long-term view. And that long-term view is an inevitability that you'll get churn, people will leave, people will be joining throughout all those that annual period, and it's not suddenly panicking and realizing, oh, we're a bit short on members, let's do a 2-month promotion and build up that audience base again. It's having that long-term view of always that pipeline of new members coming in, and also always having that brand awareness. It's not a given that people will always be aware of you, and it's important to have your name out there all the time. So I'm going to go through some of the benefits here of having that always on, and one of them primarily will be the algorithm benefits. And I think whether you're involved in ads at the moment or not, there's these new smart bidding algorithms whereby you're no longer bidding by keywords, inserting a price here and you're arriving at auction based on what you're bidding. There's smart algorithms in place, and so they work off data. And to provide them sufficient data, you need to be having the campaigns running all the time. If you're turning them on and off, it loses that data. It doesn't know your user intent and what you're looking to achieve, and so it's always guessing. And so obviously, the more you can feed it in terms of having those always-on campaigns, the better results you're going to get. The more Google, Bing, Meta, the more they realize, okay, this is your ideal customer. These are the people that convert. The more it can search for more of them, that like-minded audience. It's also being aware of, the impetus for someone to join your membership group is different in each scenario, and it's not something that's will be present throughout the year. It could be a certain stage of the year, and you just can't second guess that. You can't presume to know when they're going to be looking for your business, and unless there is something especially seasonal towards that. And in that case, it'd be more a case of altering budgets and focus through the times of year, but still always having it on. But I think
guess that's just on that, John. Going back to the short-term thing, the way we've seen this in the past is some organizations will run like renewal campaigns for certain times of year when their annual renewal comes up, or they'll have a webinar or an event that's happening. They'll run short-term campaigns for that. And I guess obviously so that's kind of where some examples of where the short-term campaigns come in, but actually there's always on campaigns that we're talking about here, and the benefits, like say, around the algorithms and the learning and all of that. That's kind of the split, isn't it, in regards to what are some examples of the different types of campaigns that might be short-term versus long-term?
Sure, and then they'll also feed into each other. So your always on campaign is going to feature and benefit your short-term promotions or your big builds focus, and vice versa. So I think that's important to recognize. And similarly with the membership groups, how they're different in terms of, you've got this long sales cycle, there's a qualification period. In some instances with businesses we work with, it could be up to 6 months, whereby someone makes an application and it goes through committees or it goes through verification, and this process isn't overnight. So I think that's very different from an e-commerce business or somebody buying something there and then, whereby even from a quote to a lead scenario, you're not normally looking at that long a sales cycle. So that's where this nurturing process is very important in terms of the brand recognition from a start, and then also just nurturing that sales cycle all the way along. And equally, membership groups are trying to sell like a community. It's quite often there's portals, there's resources to access, there's forums or people to speak to or gain knowledge from. So there's a lot of benefits and features there that you want to be making customers aware of. And again, they feed into each other in terms of what you're looking to advertise. So the final point there being that the AOV is an average order value, and the lifetime value for membership will be specific to your use case, but will generally be extensive in terms of you'd hope to retain that member for a long period of time. It's not a one purchase and done kind of thing. And then there'll be, imagine there'll be upsells and upgrades and continued purchases throughout that period in terms of maybe it's courses or educational courses for members or other resources or access that people can benefit from. So that's worth taking note of when you're building your campaign in terms of the profit you're making from it and the cost per acquisition of each member. Yeah,
brilliant.
So I've kind of described this as your target user and how you expect them to interact with the site. I think you'll have already a good picture if you've got analytics on your site, how they work organically, or if you're already running paid ads, you'll have an idea of how that process is going currently. But having an awareness of that is important, and especially with a long conversion cycle, where you're having this eligibility criteria. You want to know, okay, what pages are users landing on? What are they visiting on before they convert? What interactions are they having with other resources on our website? Is it a case that they're filling in a form within a day or two of visiting, or is it taking multiple ad touches and visits? And it's more likely the latter. But just being aware of that in terms of how you expect your ads to perform, and then relating that back to the affordability of it all is also important. So I think this idea of solving a customer pain point or issue, that's all very important in catching eyes and immediately differentiating yourself from competition. So why they're looking for you rather than somebody else, how you can benefit their organization, and generally solving problems as they come up. It's a much more stronger strategy than just saying join us now. It's specific to their use case. And the final point I've mentioned there is about the level of nurturing required with these leads. Essentially, we might offer something like a soft conversion action to begin with. It could be just visiting an information page or an FAQ, or to download a newsletter or a brochure, where there's less commitment involved, but still equally you're engaging the user and building their trust with what you're offering. And then that can lead down the conversion funnel as such, towards actually requesting to join or sign up, and those kind of actions require different ad campaigns and budgets and allocations in that sense.
And I guess that problem-solving mindset is really important for memberships and trade associations, because ultimately that's kind of what they're there for. They're there to help solve the problems of their members. They are. So actually going in problem first is where the strength of kind of having these always on campaigns, because you're always on promoting those kind of problems, the solutions to their problems, which relates back to the value of the membership ultimately. So that's why, as you say, that's why it's very different to just an e-commerce purchase or something like that, where it's about nurturing, problem solving to convince them to take steps further down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And so whilst I've highlighted there how you might expect your target user or your dream scenario, it's also a case of excluding the irrelevant traffic. And that's probably one of the bigger pain points of seeing your ad spend and going, oh no, we've matched with all these wrong users, and we've essentially wasted money. So it's being more efficient with your ad spend in that sense. And there's certain ways to go about doing that. And obviously the more data you have historically in your account, and even your internal knowledge of how your phone calls with customers go, or how your interactions with signing up new members, you'll have a good picture of what areas need addressed most. So for instance, a common one might be including customer match lists, which is essentially an upload of email addresses of your existing users, marking those as exclusions for your cold campaigns. And by cold, I mean people that you're looking to recruit as new members. By all means, you might have those customer match lists in place for remarketing existing users and selling courses or other upgrades you have within your member group. But specifically excluding those to begin with in the cold campaigns is important. And equally using certain mediums or channels like LinkedIn, where the targeting can be very specific, and that can also be imported into Bing and things like that as well, whereby you're targeting specific job roles, titles, industries. You can be really quite specific there if you know your niche, and in the membership group case, you likely will. So those can be targeted specifically. And if you're struggling with either of those, or maybe you're starting off in Google and not in LinkedIn, or whatever the example is, maybe your GA4 audiences can give you a hint. So organically, you'll realize your performance and who's engaging with you the best, and you can create audiences from that data. So if you say, oh, the people filling in our sign up form or downloading our newsletter, they're visiting these pages, or you can make groups and audiences from that data. And I guess the final point there is, your real hard line exclusions to make sure that you're doing the best to just avoid sort of inefficient traffic. And so quite often I'm sure you'll be used to recruitment calls or sales consultants getting in touch with you. And for these, you're not looking to spend your ad money on them. So the best way you can do to remove them is obviously eliminating these negative search terms. But equally, is being aware, as I'll come to later in the presentation, actually, of how you can, even if they do click through to you, how you can exclude, wasting your time with them in terms of the landing page, the forms, and also feeding back that information towards Google in terms of offline uploads. Something I'll come back to later. To if you miss them with a negative keyword, you can still educate the platform like Google whether this is a qualified customer or not, and you'd rather exclude them in the future.
So this is really going into kind of saying how you can just keep improving the quality of the campaign by feeding it the right data. It's and that hence why that ongoing kind of the data, it will learn more as you keep going.
Yeah, and it's iterative. So you're not going to have it perfect from the beginning. As clients we bring in, it's kind of thing. It might start off where you're just making small changes every, week to week, and you're just eliminating that as you go on, because you can also step too far and, eliminate too much traffic and cause more harm than good.
Yes. Yeah. Cool.
So I'm kind of relating this back towards your campaign levels and being aware of how each user fits into those goals that you have. And so ultimately, the people that visit your site, they can get there from a number of different ways and be aware of you in a number of different ways. And so you obviously will start with people that have never heard of your brand, might not even know that you exist and what you offer. So that brand awareness piece is a separate campaign in itself of educating users in the features and benefits of your company, what you are, what you're about, building that trust. And then that can develop down towards campaigns where they know more about membership organizations, and they're browsing around and they're looking for which one suits them best, what one solves my problems, do I need specific issues with these particular topics? And so I've listed things like maybe it's legal assistance or tenders or help with compliance, resources, those kind of things, and they're starting to search for those with those intents. So they're not specifically looking for your brand, but they're looking for legal assistance with my company or those kind of search terms. And then equally, that can become sort of an action query whereby it's, okay, how do I get these things? How do I become accredited? How do I get this legal access or assistance, or how do I build a forum or community of like-minded people in my industry? And then the final piece in that funnel as such is people that have got this high intent to search for you, they've heard of you, they know about you, they're now just in this case of, okay, how do I qualify for this trade organization, or how do I join this member group? And that's the final piece of that puzzle instance. And you'll likely have campaigns targeted towards each of these levels, and they will have different goals and cost requirements or cost per acquisition requirements, because obviously the people that have never heard of you and have no idea of what you offer, that traffic will be quite cheap, but will not convert as well as the expensive traffic of people that are brand aware and high intent. But generally, it's just being aware of that funnel.
And it's interesting, this is because actually, whether you're talking PPC, whether you're talking other marketing kind of channels or activities, it's probably good to know these anyway, is that sense. So these are the things that every organization should have some awareness of, and be dividing kind of the content they create and what they produce to these different types of kind of awareness. So yeah, it's interesting. It's just as useful at this stage as well.
So conversion tracking, I think perfection is the goal, but it's not essential to start with. And there's a route to improving as you go. And it's quite often the case we'll take in clients where it could be a dog's dinner and it needs a lot of upheaval, or it could just be there's restrictions on the website that mean the perfect scenario isn't possible, but we can do our best to improve what's going on. And so it is very important to do the best you can with it, because again, you're feeding this algorithm data and you're working out your profitability from it all. So it is certainly an important aspect of setting up these always on campaigns. I would say knowing things like the value of a member to you, how many users you expect to gain or lose in a cycle as such, and things like what conversions are we looking to track? Is it phone calls? Is it form submissions? Is it webinars, visits? Is it brochure downloads? There's lots of different things you can track, and it's being aware of the importance of each of them and how to best implement that tracking. So, for instance, you can track phone calls, but if you don't know the resulting outcome of that phone call, whether it was a sales call to yourself or a recruiter, or whether it was an actual genuine bona fide sort of membership inquiry, that level of data is important to know, and there's ways you can go about improving those conversion actions. So one of those I've mentioned there is something called enhanced conversions, which is kind of largely specific to Google in terms of Google Ads rather, whereby with all the cookie compliance and consent data at the moment, this goes back towards improving your first party data. So people that are logged into their Google account when they're browsing will, if they submit an inquiry form on your website, they might not have accepted cookies, but it will still be first party. Their user address, email address will still be first party data to you, simply because of the form going through. And so that user can then be tracked back to a Google Ads conversion. That's just something I've mentioned there as best practice for what we try to implement in terms of building your conversion data. Examples I've included of conversions, I spoke about some of them there in terms of some soft ones to begin with, might be visiting a page, or it could be downloading a brochure, or visiting a webinar, and then equally to then the hard ones like actually generating an inquiry, so submitting a form or calling you about an inquiry. And so they all feed back into the offline uploads, which I'll probably come back to later, but the idea being that once you have a good idea of your ideal customer, the people that are submitting these inquiries to join your member group, you can then take that data and re-upload it to Google Ads or to Bing or to whichever channel you're using, and let them know that this was a qualified conversion. We give it this value. This customer is worth this amount to us, and then the ads channel will then go about finding more like-minded people like that with that intent, that value, and build upon the campaigns with this sort of algorithm data. Final part there I've mentioned is consent mode, which is it's been in place for a while now actually, but it's very influential and impactful on your data. And so at the moment, the idea is that cookies will be denied by default when a user visits your site, and only once they accept cookies will you be able to track analytics on them. And again, that's limits your first party data or the access to it. So consent mode respects those rules with your cookie banner and the implementation of the cookie banner, and then also goes about trying to model the ad clicks or organic clicks also through that process. And so at the moment, unless you have a user base of 1,000 visits to your site every day for 7 days with 1,000 events, consent mode will struggle to model that. So you'll see, for example, once this is implemented correctly, there will be a drop in traffic as such, or a drop in recorded activity. And so that's something to be aware of, but is a necessity at the moment with new rules. So I think there's new implementation going around of ways to improve your first party data. And like I spoke about with enhanced conversions, there's other things like Google Tag Gateway and other ways to recover your data in ways that are still meet GDPR and still are compliant. But it's just to illustrate the impact of all that.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I guess the key thing you said at the beginning here was also not necessarily waiting for that perfection, not waiting for the perfect kind of conversion tracking setup, because it's always an evolving kind of landscape in some ways. You're always looking to track more. There's never, in some ways, you never get to define, you never complete kind of conversion tracking. You always want to see what else you can do with that data and improve it. So yeah, by actually starting actually gives you the roadmap to know where to focus on first, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't want to put anyone off in terms of if it's not perfect, because everyone we take in, we make incremental improvements to the conversion tracking.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, so the ad creative, besides if it's keyword based on Google or Bing, then you obviously know what keyword the user has typed in. But if it's impression based on LinkedIn or Meta or one of these visual platforms, it's more a case of it could be the first time the user's ever seen your ad. So I think the ad creative is a very early touch in terms of pre-qualifying the visitor, and you want that to be, you don't want to be hoodwinking anyone. It's not a case of mis-selling or trying to write this fantastic advert that sells something you don't really sell. So it's a pre-qualification stage, and I think you can, with a limit of the characters you have or the actual user sort of attention span that you have, you need to be quite savvy with it. So for instance, in LinkedIn, you might see, a dwell time on an ad that's from 3 to 15 seconds. They're not spending minutes looking around. So it's having a high impact early on. And likewise with your search ads on Google or Bing, it's the same idea. So it's accurately informing them of the landing page, and that relates back to your keyword and also your ad rank. So Google is aware of your landing page and the landing page experience that the user has, and it relates that to the keyword and your ad messaging. So it knows give that a score. And obviously, the better your ad rank, the lower your cost per clicks, and the more profitable your click is. So these all play into each other, and it's important to be aware of that. So it's again, it's aligning your messaging with the campaign type that you're creating. So we spoke about earlier with awareness campaigns or intent campaigns or conversion campaigns. These are all different levels and will require different call to action, different messaging, different features and benefits, different outcome messaging. And so I guess we have experience in building that for different clients. And so it's just important to be aware of. I've said use outcome messaging where possible. So it's quite common to offer a feature and not describe the benefit. You might be saying get access to legal support, but that doesn't mean as much as saying, okay, what's the benefit of having that legal support? Or if it's a specific legal action that you can solve for somebody, then just describing that outcome in the messaging could be more valuable. So it's small tweaks like that can have a big impact in terms of your click-through rates and also just the engagement as well. So I've also mentioned there things like case studies and visual proof can be invaluable. Infographics can work well. There's a whole variety of different content that can work for different industries. So it will be unique to your use case in some sense. Some products and services will work very well visually, and others will work very well for a text and search ad scenario. So it's more case by case basis, but there will largely be follow those kind of formats. And equally, I've said there that just because you've dreamed up this ideal creative and you think it's superb, it's quite likely you can iterate and improve and test different things. And these tests do have to be structured. It's very easy to change 2 or 3 things at once and wait 2 weeks and then change something again. And to really learn something, you need a high bank of statistics. And I think you can get carried away with making too many changes, too many different things. And so I think using these metrics like your click-through rate, your engagement through GA4 and things like that, the pages that people have visited, and then the events that they go on to create. And I think there's also aspects like introducing Microsoft Clarity or Hotjar, these things that let you see user activity across the site and learning, okay, so they joined through PPC, paid ad, came to the site and browsed 2 different pages, looked around but didn't find what they're looking for and bounced again. Okay, how could we have made that path more obvious? What resource were they looking for that they didn't get? And those are the kind of things that you'd hope to spend time diving into.
I think what I find interesting with this is obviously you can sometimes get caught up in like paid media with regards to stats and bidding strategies and reports and conversion rates and all that sort of stuff. But actually, all the things you're talking about here, like case studies and having the right visuals and getting the right messaging, which again, core to kind of marketing really is just as important. It is, yes, you can, but I guess the key is you can use the data to know what's working. But I guess it's not skipping this bit, not thinking, well, we can get away with some kind of lower quality graphics because actually we've got a good bidding strategy. It's like, no, the graphics will improve the overall results of the campaign, I guess.
Yeah. Cool. So from that ad creative, the user will land on your page. And from that point, you've earned their click, earned their attention. What can you do to keep it as such? And so the landing page, we have a lot of experience using PPC specific landing pages. So maybe an organization might have organic pages where they're full of lots of detail and other resources and things that can distract from what we're actually looking to attract. And so we have PPC specific pages that have a call to action that's immediately visible. It doesn't dominate the page, but isn't distracted from it all. And then equally, you've got the important formats of the page in terms of what you're looking to deliver and relating that to the advert. So the relevance of the advert copy is obviously very important. It's the problems you're trying to solve, being very impactful with that and limiting the fluff around it, and relating that to an element of trust in your business, and respecting the fact that it could be the case that the user is, click through on your ad, will look at one page and may or may not continue. So you want to have everything on that landing page that you feel can best convert them, at least to a point where they're familiar with your brand at least, and if they saw a retargeting ad or something later down the line, tick a box in the head to go, oh yes, I've read about them earlier, I know what they offer and what they can do. And equally, the same as with the ad creative, the experimentation could be endless with landing pages. We've got a good sort of format, and we know, through lots of experience with different landing pages for different clients, what tends to work, especially with what I'm going to speak about next in terms of forms, whereby because you're a membership organization, there's an eligibility criteria. So you can't just have name, address, and yes, please, I'd like to join. There's going to be some criteria involved that you want to sort for. So I think it's respecting, first of all, that you want to minimize the required fields. So sure, if somebody wants to join you, they will go through the effort to fill in the form, but you don't want to make it an arduous process. And so it's really having the bare minimum whereby you can qualify them towards the phone call that follows up, or the email interaction, or whatever it is that follows, but you're not looking to destroy that interaction at the first boundary. But equally, as I mentioned with point B there, that you can insert some qualification here. So, we had an example with people getting hounded with recruitment inquiries. And so we just had a simple tick box to say, if you're interested in recruitment, tick this box. And then as it went to the next page of the submission, they were recommended to redirect to a different aspect of the website, a different form on the website, and submit their inquiry there. And therefore it's not wasted as such. It's not, you're not wasting your call operator or your business staff, recontacting those inquiries. And so I think, I think that describes the forms really.
Cool.
So retargeting is an important aspect especially for membership organizations, I would say, because of the long sales cycle. So there's two ways to look at it. It could be a case of retargeting your existing members for a new service you're offering. For example, you could have members that are already signed up with you, and you launch a new initiative. Maybe you've got a new growth hub, or you've got a new level of service that you'd like them to know about, and that could be a retargeting option. It could be a case of retargeting still users you're looking to join you. So they might have seen a YouTube advert of yours, or they've seen a LinkedIn advert, and kind of browsed on and forgot about it, and then you're retargeting them with these multi-touch points. And I think with the majority of cases that is the route to conversion. It's never a case of they see your ad, click it, and convert straight away. It's a very long sales cycle in that sense. So retargeting definitely has a place. It's something you allocate specific budget to. You wouldn't want to mix it in with your existing cold campaigns, I'll call it. So this is traffic that has heard about you. They're aware of your brand, and you're looking to show them something specific and different. And allocate budget accordingly, and also your conversion goals accordingly. So the danger, obviously, is if you split your budget too wide, and you inserted your remarketing audience in with your cold campaigns, what would likely happen is the advertising channel, like Google, for example, would heavily favor those retargeting audiences and neglect the cold campaigns, because it knows the retargeting audience has a better chance of converting, and so it would dilute your aims and goals there. And another reason for that is, I've said there, leaves you open to competitor theft. If other groups and businesses will be retargeting, and they will be showing multi-touch point ads where it's across different channels, and so you could initially raise your brand awareness, they hear of you, and then forget about you and get scooped up by someone else. So it's just a necessary impact, or necessary part of the sales process. And like that, with the specific messaging, you can be very focused with it. I mean, you're imagining these people, if you've built your audience from people that have visited a specific FAQ page or a specific Growth Hub page or a specific legal resource page, you can target the messaging to say, okay, here's a specific case study where we solve a problem that you might have had. It speaks to the audience very clearly. They're aware of, you're speaking their language as such, and it's so identifiable and relatable that they're more enticed to click. And it also shows sort of social proof of you being able to solve these problems. You're not just offering membership, you're offering, features and benefits and outcomes. So like I've said there about generating these audiences, it can be done various different ways. It could be they visited a page on your site. It could be they've clicked or interacted with an ad or downloaded a document from you. There's lots of different ways to build these audiences that we have experience with, and that depends on the functionality of your site. And you might say, okay, I don't have a newsletter or I don't have a download. Well, okay, can we? Do you have educational YouTube video they might have visited, or a particular page that you think they might have visited where that's a very qualified lead and someone we want to react to. And so those lists can be built, for various different durations. Typically, they'd be sort of 30 to 90 days. Once you're remarketing to people that have longer than 90 days, there's a chance that it's probably a bit of a cold lead, really, but it could be unique use cases. I think I've also mentioned there about CRM lists. So you'll have a lot of first-party data in terms of users that have already signed up with you or have registered for one of your courses, or it could be, any variety of reasons. And that also offers you outbound opportunities to retarget them. And so with that first-party data, as it's becoming more and more restricted, is making use of that the best way possible.
I think this is a really good way as well of personalizing the targeting around the messaging. Membership organizations obviously have that issue where sometimes because they offer so much value, but it's actually usually only one or two bits of value that an individual might lean into or lean towards and lean into regards to why they're going to join. It's two things out of the 10 that they're actually interested in, and then they might use the other 8 further into their membership. So this allows you to personalize the messaging around what they've engaged. As you said earlier, they're reading certain articles, going to certain sections of the site. That's what they're valuing in their potential membership. So you can then retarget a personalized, kind of really focused kind of value proposition towards them, rather than it being, here's the 10 values. It's like, oh no, here's the 2 that you're interested in. So yeah, personalization, I feel like, is a real kind of real important way. And that's why it works so well, I think, for membership organizations.
Yeah, I agree. Personalization, and then just the attention span you've got as well, of being respectful. Yeah. They're not going to spend 10 minutes looking at this. It's make an impact, make it now, and make it relevant.
Cool. Thank you.
So I guess a common question might be, which channel should I be using? If you had all the budget in the world, you'd say all of them. There's features and benefits to all the channels, but I guess each of them has a specific impact. And I've tried to sort of summarize them here. I wouldn't say this defines every use case, and certainly, we try and use the majority of these channels. So as an example, I've already said that Google and Bing are entirely keyword focused and search intent focused. So if somebody isn't aware of the problem they've got and they're having to research it, these ones can quite often miss that awareness piece. So I think Google and Microsoft are good for the high intent focused, or that lower down the funnel user that knows what they're looking for, they're searching for it, they're comparing competitors or different options, and so it's quite high in terms of conversion rate. I guess also in terms of defending your brand presence and expecting the best performance, Google and Microsoft will likely have that goal in terms of supporting your organic reach as well. Whereas when it comes to things or opportunities where users might not be aware of you or know that they've even got this problem, they could be browsing, like I've said here, LinkedIn or Meta, and realize, oh, there's an image advert for a compliance problem I'm having. I hadn't even realized that this person could solve it, or I didn't realize this was the way to solve that problem. And the reason you've accomplished that is because you've targeted their unique job roles or their unique industries, presented a common problem that you see in terms of with your existing members, and you've solved it for them. And so that they might browse LinkedIn or Meta and see that visually, and interact with the ad in any way or visit the site in any way. And that feeds back into the high intent users above, whereby maybe they come back another day and they search for a search query around that topic again, and your brand pops up. And you're effectively, hitting that user in multiple touch points. So that's where the LinkedIn and Meta come in strong, is having that first impression with somebody relevant, and creating that funnel approach. And finally, there I've said that awareness limited, where you're really trying to have that top level impact of just getting your name out there, making sure you're known, and people being more familiar and trusting of your brand. And that's where your YouTube's ad comes in. And again, LinkedIn and Meta can feed into that with more sort of cold audiences, of like lookalikes and similar audiences, where it's likely not going to have as good a conversion rate, but it will be slightly cheaper traffic and also feed into the later funnels that I've mentioned above.
Cool. So
this, I guess, is related to always on PPC campaigns, but might not always be thought of. I've had interactions in the past where clients might think that it's an either or scenario, and where you're investing in SEO, you're investing in paid ads, and it doesn't need to be that way, and nor should it be. I think both aspects support each other, and there's the logic of highlighted some ways that complement each other here, in both directions. And so, if you take your PPC ads, for example, you'll get given this whole long search query report of, if you have an ad for your membership organization, you'll get to see the search terms that generated that keyword. And those can be ranging from, one word phrases up to, 7 or 8 word phrases. And you start to learn about user intent. You can make databases of what we would call n-grams, or common catchphrases, and you can then incorporate that into your SEO work. So you start to learn about meta titles, descriptions. You start to learn, okay, what content hub should I be creating? What FAQs do users commonly have? The sort of questions that you wouldn't necessarily always know without seeing those search query reports. So it translates in that direction, and equally making new user resources and building new landing pages to answer questions that users have through your ads, that you wouldn't learn otherwise. And equally, I would say this translates the other direction, where if you know your user base best, and when they're phoning you or they're reaching out to you, what their pain points are, what their issues are, what problems they're looking to be solved, what things they struggle to find elsewhere, or what they've learned from their past, and you can incorporate that into your paid ads. That could be in the ad creative sense or keywords you're targeting, but it works in both directions that way. And it's, again, iterative in terms of you're always learning and you're always able to implement more or refine. And I guess the final point there I've mentioned about sector or industry pages, is that once you start to learn new things, you can incorporate them into your website in ways that help with the direction of flow. It could be your headings or your category pages, and finding, hold on a minute, this structure that we thought was useful isn't actually the journey people are taking, or let's experiment with a different way of doing things, to promote what we've learned from the paid ad side of things.
Brilliant. Great, thank you very much. Yeah, very good ending on there regards to the SEO as well. I think, as you say, it's easily seen as an either or kind of mentality, when actually we strongly believe in both, and they're both, we see results from both, and as you say, they kind of really can complement each other. So thank you very much for that, John. Really insightful. Hopefully that's given everyone a bit of an insight into kind of what an always on campaign could bring your organizations, if you decided to run one. We have got a few questions here. So first question is from Gemma. So Gemma's asking, how do we avoid cannibalizing organic traffic? So I guess this is relating to the SEO kind of mindset as well.
Yeah, so I think it's important to protect your brand, and the competitiveness over that brand will vary from industry to industry and business to business. I think a brand campaign within paid ads is always important to have, and you will have metrics within that campaign for something called impression share, and your absolute top of page rate, which will illustrate how commonly you're appearing at the top of the page and how much of the traffic you're capturing from what's available out there. So you generally siphon that into its own campaign with a specific budget that would generally be quite small, but would be, because it's your brand, you would have the high quality score traffic, you would have cheap cost per clicks, and so you can have control over it. And equally, if once you see that impression share start to reach a level that you're happy with, you can then titrate up or down the bids, or the budgets, to either move that in either direction. But certainly it's important to protect your brand. And then if you feel that, okay, our impression share is far too high, we're hitting 100% impression share and there's no other competitors in our industry, then you can start to bring that down and make sure you aren't cannibalizing that organic traffic. And equally, within aspects of Google Ads, you'll have auction insights that show you who you're appearing in auctions against, and you can start to learn from that alongside your organic traffic as well, what sort of presence you have.
So interesting. So yeah, so ultimately it's part of the answer is yes, it is something to be concerned about and not to ignore, but there are tools and strategies in place to make sure to reduce the impact or completely remove that kind of worry. In that sense, is if you just ran a campaign and didn't think about it, yes, there might be a problem, but actually if you focused on it and identified it, you can kind of overcome it, and it becomes less of an issue.
Yeah, I should have made that more clear actually, because quite often we'll inherit campaigns from other agencies or other businesses where there's not those guardrails in place, and they might have a broad match keyword on their brand. It's picking up loads of synonyms, it's picking up loads of competitors. It's not pure brand traffic. It might have virtually 100% impression share and a very high budget, or they might be filtering brand into their cold campaigns, whereby you're targeting a specific use case and you're just getting loads of brand traffic in that campaign, and it's making it look a lot better than it is in reality. And that sort of cannibalization is very easy to fix, but surprisingly common.
Yes.
You get quite a lot. So it's kind of fluffs up the numbers to make the campaigns look better than they really are. But it is cannibalizing your organic traffic. And in that case, that's why we siphon it into its own campaign and build negative keywords in place to stop that running away with itself.
Yeah, it's funny that, as you say, that I think one of the recommendations we'll definitely make anyone that is running any sort of kind of paid ads, especially keyword focused, is to just look at how many actually of your conversions are coming from your brand. Because sometimes, as you say, sometimes we do get accounts kind of come to us and they think that they're being told and their data's telling them they've got a high conversion rate, the click-through rates and all that are really kind of really positive, but actually when it's 70%, 80% their brand, you think, well, actually it's not an overly well managed campaign, because they're only just focused on their brand searches. So yeah, interesting that can be an issue. So cool, thank you very much. Next question on the list is, I guess we've touched on this a little bit, regards to kind of whether you should choose LinkedIn or Google or both, regards to kind of if you're starting on this campaign.
Yeah, so I think like I was saying, they all have their unique use cases, but I think the more often or not, the obvious choice is to start with the high intent campaigns in Google, and then laying on the LinkedIn afterwards. It could be the case that you're more likely to hit relevant traffic in LinkedIn if you've got a very targeted audience you're looking to capture. So if you have an email list or first party data, or you have a company list that you want to be in front of, then LinkedIn would be the obvious audience to start with there, because it has that targeting availability. But if you're wanting to maximize your use of budget early on to sort of dip the toe in the water, then that people searching for your service or product or membership generally is a good place to start. Specifically with smaller budgets, for example, where LinkedIn has a higher cost per click and higher cost per acquisition. So you have to respect that in terms of you're getting in front of a very qualified audience, but it will be more expensive. So I think, yeah, referring back to that earlier slide of they've each got their own use case, and ideal scenario being both, assuming it's this membership query that we're talking about. But largely, starting with that high intent would probably be the best place to start.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. And final question from Kate is, what budget do we need to make always on campaigns work?
Yeah, so I guess the reason might be is that people run burst campaigns or these short promotions as they feel they can't merit the spend on the always on. And so I think the number will be different for everyone, but the way to find it out would be the sort of minimum conversion thresholds that are required for the campaign to work. And so generally, you know, when you set up a campaign in Google Ads, for example, it will go through a learning period for a few days to weeks where it accumulates conversion data and then builds the algorithm around that. And that conversion number is generally sort of recommended at 30 conversions before it will start to be able to optimize. And so 30 conversions in a month would be a standard rate to try and achieve. It's not something that everyone is able to get. And so if, for example, you're not experiencing 30 signups at the moment, that might be, maybe you have to track backwards and go, is there another conversion action we can track that's still relevant? So like I was saying earlier with your secondary conversion, it could be, have they downloaded a newsletter, or have they made a phone call to us, or have they emailed us? There's always a way you can go back to help the algorithm along. So if you strictly made it, okay, I only want to track the people that signed up as a conversion, you might not get 30 a month. But if you say, okay, I'll track people that have downloaded our newsletter and see them as like a soft conversion that I can retarget, then you start to build enough data to make the campaigns viable. And so I wouldn't immediately say that, okay, I'm not getting 30 conversions a month, let's turn off Google Ads. That's not what I'd say at all. So hopefully that explains the sort of logic around that.
I guess the other side of it as well is you mentioned it earlier around like lifetime value of a member. So if to start, when you're starting to think around kind of numbers and how much you're willing to pay for a new member, is if you know also your lifetime value of a member, that will help kind of inform you regards to how much you're willing to kind of pay for new members. If we class these as kind of, if we're classing this as kind of generating new members that wouldn't have signed up without this channel, then that will also help you kind of pull together some numbers in your head and on a spreadsheet to say, okay, we can afford this cost per acquisition for a member. We can do, which then, like you say, then obviously it gives us a little bit of a guide at the beginning to know where we should be targeting. Obviously, if we can get lower than that, then we will do, sort of thing. So yeah, I guess it's a difficult one to, as you say, every use case is different, and every membership setup and member value is different. But actually, yeah, that, I guess that's something we would always kind of go through at the beginning to help kind of set some kind of targets and at least some kind of goals to say where we should be looking to try and sit. Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's the last question. So thank you for that, John. So thank you, everyone. That's obviously that's the kind of end of the webinar. So we have next webinar coming in March on the 26th. That's a Thursday this time. It is. So you'll see some emails around that soon, regards to kind of what that might be. What we're talking about, obviously talking about membership growth, which is we're from a digital marketing side point of view. So really key to kind of our offering. Again, thank you very much. So let's have a chat, I guess. If you wanted to, if you have any questions, I know one person reached out on chat already. Have any questions around kind of how you can implement always on PPC, or just generally if PPC will work for you and any sort of paid media, then feel free to have a chat, obviously no obligation and all of that. And yeah, love to kind of talk about, yeah, and support you in your membership growth strategy. So thank you very much. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.